third driver's title on the trot, but Ron Dennis and co have lost a lot of ground since their domination of 1984. With designer John Barnard now on his way to Ferrari, the team will have to make some key appointments to stay at the sharp end. Alain Prost showed his consistency and quality by taking the title despite winning fewer races than Mansell, but Keke Rosberg had a final season to forget. He just never seemed to gel with the car and rarely got to show that trademark pugnacious driving. Once again, Tyrrell did good work on meagre resources, making the most of the customer Renault engines, always a development behind the works units in the Lotus and Ligier cars. Martin Brundle finally scored points and got to keep them, and Streff also acquitted himself well. 7th in the constructors' table was a fine reward for their efforts, but with Renault pulling the plug thanks to the incoming turbo ban, it looks like Ken Tyrrell, never the most enthusiastic turbo user, will be returning to the Ford fold for next year. Constructors champions by a country mile, and clearly the best car out there, but the season-long battle between Mansell and Piquet, while great for the neutrals, ended up costing the drivers' title. There are many, including those high up in Honda, who believe that Williams should have focused on Piquet with Mansell as support, and it will be interesting to see if the dynamics within the team change for 1987. A pretty miserable season for Brabham, whose striking BT55 just didn't work. Gordon Murray just had to make too many compromises, and the BMW engineers couldn't iron out the technical difficulties. Losing the popular Elio De Angelis in an accident seemed to knock the fight out of the team, and even the phlegmatic Derek Warwick couldn't steady the ship. The problems go all the way to the top, too, with team owner Bernie Eccleston needing to devote ever more time and energy to his responsibilities as FOCA chief and commercial rights holder. BMW at least have been persuaded to continue supplying the team in 1987 as they withdraw from their other commitments. Lotus continue their tradition going back to the 60s of building cars that are fast but fragile, though thankfully less lethal than back then. Senna is clearly a huge talent and did well to stay in the title race to nearly the end of the season, but he was let down by reliability problems, with 6 retirements across the season. Johnny Dumfries in the other car gave it a game stab, but was always fighting an uphill struggle, with Senna commandeering the lion's share of the resources, and by his own admission Johnny just wasn't really ready for Formula 1. The West German Zakspeed team's first full season effort had yielded little in the way of results, with the best being 8th places for Palmer in Detroit and Rothengatter in Austria. It wasn't an unalloyed failure either. The cars regularly beat both Ozellas in qualifying at least, and Palmer finished as often as he didn't. But if these were small comforts, they needn't worry too much. The team remains well financed and organised, and Jonathan Palmer has done valuable development work as well as his race day job. Their main concern must be in ironing out the reliability issues with their in-house engine. From such a promising start with an all-star team and backing from Ford, it seems as though Haas-Lola are destined to remain a footnote in F1, a team that only entered one full season before disappearing again, and all because of a boardroom coup at the Beatrice Foods empire. That said, with a bit more success in that first season, perhaps new sponsors could have been found. As it was, there were just a couple of points finishes in Austria and Italy to look back on, and now there are a lot of talented people looking for new jobs. After a fairly solid, if unspectacular, 1985, Jackie Oliver's team took a definite step backwards in 1986, mainly because the A9 chassis was an absolute dog. Nothing seemed to work, even mating it with the A8's rear end, and the team ended the season with just 1 point, courtesy of Christian Danner, and a clutch of frustrating 7th places. With long-serving driver Mark Seurer out with injury, Barclay-sponsored Boutsen moving on to better things with Benetton next year, and BMW pulling out of their engine supply deal, Jackie Oliver will have a lot of work to do to put his 1987 package together. Not a bad season at all for the sweater salesman, and/or the culmination of Tolman's hard work story, depending on your point of view. Either way, 3 points finishes from 4 attempts in the first 2 races, then a podium, and then a win in Mexico was impressive stuff, and the team certainly made better use of those BMW turbo engines than long-term partners Brabham, giving them the fastest F1 car in history in a straight line. Reliability issues in mid-season prevented more fireworks, and the team will have to hope that Boutsen proves an effective replacement for Berger next year. Enzo, Ozella and co must really love racing because the more tangible rewards are distinctly thin on the ground. Their chassis is nearly 3 years old, the engine too, and both are overweight, unreliable and, in the engine's case, thirsty too. Genzani only finished once, while Alan Berg, pretty much always whole seconds adrift of his teammate at the back of the grid, finished 4 times, albeit 2 of those unclassified. Will Azella be back next year? Probably. Will they do better? They can hope. Looking a little more like they knew what they were doing this year, but still without much to show for it and just 4 finishes all year. The highlight was Andrea de Cesaris's fine 11th place in qualifying in Australia, which also gave him the only finish of the year. Nannini, meanwhile, is clearly a decent driver, but it's difficult to assess just how good with such a dodgy car under him. The basic problem is that Carlo Chiti's Motori Moderni engine just isn't powerful enough, but the team could also stand to improve their car preparation to improve overall reliability. Early in the season, the Ligier team looked really good, going into the British Grand Prix 4th in the constructors' standings and having led the Detroit race 1-2 for some time. Following Jacques Lafitte's crash at Silverstone, though, the team only recorded 2 more points finishes, and whether through simple demoralisation or lacking Lafitte's input on the development of the JS27 chassis, the difference was marked. René Arnoux showed flashes of his old Ferrari form, and the competition between him and Lafitte seemed to spur them both on. Philippe Alliot proved capable enough as a short-notice replacement and outqualified Arnoux on a couple of occasions. He will be hoping to have demonstrated his ability after 2 torrid seasons in the Ram before this. The first season since 1980 in which Ferrari didn't win a race. Pre-season testing had been promising, but in the final analysis, the F186 was just slow and unreliable, and both drivers struggled to make their talents shine through. Alboreto had the best single result with 2nd in Austria, but the more consistent Johansson outscored him by 9 points to finish 5th and best of the rest. So there were some who thought that once again Ferrari had got rid of the wrong driver by letting Johansson go, especially as Alboreto was coming to the end of his 3-year contract. Berger should be an able replacement though, and with John Barnard coming in as technical director, the team will be hoping that 1986 will just be a blip. There's not a lot you can say about a team based on 2 races, but they looked like they knew what they were about, and outqualified 3 Azellas and a Zaxpeed in a Formula 3000 car with a borrowed Minardi engine. And all that with just 7 people. It'll be interesting to see how things go for a full season next year.